Practical Anarchy, Guide to Self-Determination, Dicky. Section 82. Crime and Accountability in Free Societies was an interesting one, this one. Surprises me, people's reactions. Anyway, whenever anarchism is raised as a possibility, skeptics often respond with the same question: what about crime? Without the state, who would punish theft, assault, fraud, or worse? This assumption reveals more about how deeply we have internalised the logic of punishment than about human behaviour itself. It presumes that crime is a fixed aspect of human nature rather than a reflection of material and social conditions. The roots of crime. Most crime is not born of malice, but of deprivation. As the Zeitgeist film stressed, inequality and poverty are the true engines of acquisitive crime. The postcode lottery of education and health, structural unemployment, broken housing systems, and communities abandoned by capital all generate the conditions for theft, violence, and fraud. Add peer cultures shaped by exclusion and alienation, and crime becomes more symptom than cause. Earlier sections already showed how inequality produces instability. Here we see its human fallout. The state frames crime as an individual failing, an opportunity to expand its own policing and prison powers. Yet criminologists have long shown that inequality correlates directly with crime rates. Restated bluntly, the more unequal society, the more crime it produces. Would crime exist in a free society? Anarchist visions of a resource-based society, and we discussed that in section 8, suggest that many drivers of crime would diminish sharply. If housing, food, healthcare and education are guaranteed, the incentive for theft or fraud largely disappears. In such contexts, crime becomes less about survival and more about fringe cases of conflict or pathology. Indigenous systems of justice often worked this way, with theft almost unheard of because survival was a collective matter, not an individual competition. Portugal's experiment with drug decriminalisation provides a glimpse. By treating addiction as a health issue rather than a crime, rates of drug-related deaths and HIV infections fell, while social reintegration improved. Remove scarcity and stigma, and much crime evaporates. Beyond punishment, alternatives to state justice. Prisons and policing are not neutral mechanisms. They are the state's tools for maintaining order and protecting property, which we discussed earlier. In anarchist contexts, justice must be reimagined away from punishment and towards accountability. Restorative and transformative justice offer one path, emphasising repair of harm and reintegration rather than warehousing. The Maori concept of wānau, conferencing, where families and communities collectively negotiate redress, has inspired models used in New Zealand youth justice. Zapatista communities in Chiapas and women's councils in Rojava provide other real-world examples where harm is addressed through assemblies that prioritise survivor support and community safety rather than retribution. These systems are imperfect and struggle under external pressure, that they show that non-statist approaches to justice can endure for decades. The hard cases: sexual crime and psychopathy. Not all harms can be explained by deprivation. Sexual violence, coercion and psychopathy pose deeper challenges. Feminist anarchists argue that patriarchal structures normalise sexual harm, so communities must actively build cultures of consent and accountability. Survivors cannot be silenced in the name of unity. Assemblies, exclusion processes and therapeutic interventions have been used in co-ops and squats to confront abusers. In Rojava, sexual violence is treated as a political question, resolved through community councils rather than distant courts. Psychopathy and entrenched harmful behaviours require other approaches. Anarchist societies would still need mechanisms of containment. containment, not prisons in the state sense, but structured supervision, exclusion from assemblies or collective monitoring. Illness, upbringing, trauma, and neurological differences will be treated through care first, but care does not mean tolerance of ongoing harm. Crime as social construction. It is also crucial to ask what counts as crime. Many acts criminalised today, trespass, squatting, free parties, drug use, are only crimes because they threaten property relations or state authority. In a free society, these would not be crimes at all. The very definition of crime is bound up with the state's priorities. Justice is collective responsibility. Crime will not disappear in a free society, but its scope and nature would be transformed. Without systematic poverty, acquisition crime shrinks. Without patriarchal structures, sexual violence is confronted rather than excused. Without prisons, justice becomes a matter of community, accountability, survivor support and harm reduction. Anarchism does not deny the existence of harm. It insists that harm should not be managed by a coercive state apparatus that perpetuates inequality. Crime, then, is not a flaw to be hidden from anarchist visions, but a mirror showing why the state fails. A free society would still confront harm, but it would do so as a collective responsibility, not as punishment handed down from above. This is an interesting one, maybe a bit of a surprise to some of you. Why not to hate the rich? It is easy to direct anger upwards, just as propaganda so often directs it downwards. When politicians and media scapegoat migrants, welfare recipients, or the unemployed, they invite us to pour hatred onto those with the least power. But the opposite reflex, hating the rich, also misses the point. The wealthy are not the cause of structural inequality. They are its beneficiaries and, just like everyone else, its products. Most of us, given the same background, environment, education, peer group and opportunities, would likely act in similar ways. Wealth tends to reinforce itself. Private schools, elite universities, investment networks and family safety nets make it hard to imagine any other life. To despise individuals for following the logic of their environment risks reproducing the very cycle of blame on which the system thrives. This does not mean ignoring exploitation or excusing injustice. Billionaires hoarding wealth while others go hungry is indefensible, but the point is to dismantle the structures, property relations, global finance, monopolies, lobbying networks that make such concentrations possible in the first place. Focusing only on individuals creates the illusion that if a few bad actors were removed, the system would function justly. In reality, the system itself generates inequality, regardless of the personalities involved. As argued in this section, no baby is born greedy or cruel. People are shaped by circumstance, by the stories they are told, by their parents, peers and teachers. Just as the poor are demonised as lazy, the rich are caricatured as evil. Both narratives distract from truth. Inequality is systemic, not personal. This perspective shifts the train of struggle. Rather than fueling resentment, anarchist practice aims to build new relations that make hoarding impossible and cooperation natural. By refusing to play the blame game, whether directed downward or upward, we can focus our energy on changing structures, not simply swapping the faces who sit at the top.